skin so gorgeous. We thank the life gorgeous. Thank the life gorgeous. I love the life gorgeous. Its torso is so tight.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Life Gorgeous. My name is Gregors. Some people say affectionately Lord Kilby. Greg Kilborn, this is the Life Gorgeous. This is where I share my magical life in hopes of improving your life. We have a return guest, a friend of mine. Very excited. Always enjoy talking to him. Hall of Famer, Dan Barreiro. He is in the Minnesota Broadcasting Hall of Fame. And let me just point out that none of the Hall of Famers in Minnesota ever did late night television. Forget I said that. But Dan, nice to see you, sir.
I'm just so pleased. I had great concern that because you're such a perfectionist, there was a chance I wouldn't get a second shot. You know, I thought the first time around went well, but with you, you'll always have that, you know, there's a little bit of that edge where, am I up to Lord Kilby's standards? Will he deign to allow me a second shot at this thing? And lo and behold, here we are.
Here we are. And we also had a little delay because we weren't sure if you were your mouth was in sync, your video was in sync. And as this airs, I don't even know if it's audio only, but we'll decide that later. But our energy is up. Let me just set you up a little more. You dominate Minneapolis radio on KFan. You do sports and so much more. Drive time, also Sunday sermons. So you work 6 days a week. Guardsy likes when I say he really doesn't like his home life. That's why he works so much. But Guardsy is your producer, but also we would never use the word sidekick because he's a great broadcaster in his own right. But I know you work hard, so thanks for driving into the office. You have that beautiful white background that is just, I don't know what statement you're making there that you're
I don't either.
Are you like an Andy Warhol fan or what?
I feel like it's got some lineup qualities a little bit, but you know, we work with what we have here. We're a local, you know, operation here. You've got access to, well, Hollywood's at your fingertips, and you got all kinds of connections in the business, and we're just kind of muddling along, doing the best we can in flyover country.
Yeah, right. You make an outrageous sum of money. I think I pointed out that was the Vikings offensive lineman money last time. But just what is your square footage of your house? Can I guess? Is it over 4,500 square feet?
Yes, it is.
Do you have?
But it's not about square footage.
You better not have
it's about
more than three
about
bathrooms.
Quality.
You better not have more than 3 bathrooms.
Craigers, you don't want to know. Actually, next time you come, I'll invite you.
Okay, so
come to the homestead. It's not that far out of downtown.
Tell me how many bathrooms you have in your
We have more than 3. Well, it's the way it works. If you have a certain number of bedrooms, you're going to have a certain number of bathrooms, sort of whether you want to or not. You know what I'm saying?
So did you have the house built for yourself?
Yes, we did.
Custom
we had the
built.
house built. Custom built home about 11 years ago. We've been there now. Minnetonka, Minnesota.
Bigger than Prince's home or smaller?
No, I think that's unlikely.
Bigger than Nancy Nelson's home? That's an inside joke that nobody knows except for 5% of the population in Minnesota know that.
Never stopped you before.
How many, by the way, I should look this up, but I don't like to do research. I like to bond with the guest. How many years have you been doing, hosting at KFan? And how many years have you been number one?
Co-hosting, starting in 1992 with Sid Hartman's kid, Chad.
Chad, I know Chad.
Who brought me into the business. They brought me into the radio business, basically. And made me his partner, and then we got divorced in 2002.
Okay.
In terms of the numbers, I don't know if it's at least 14, 15 years, I think.
Number one in the market,
but it may go further back than that. It's hard to say. I'm not sure I know. I try not to pay too much attention to that, because then you do I'm not a real superstitious person, but then I get worried that the minute you obsess over that, you're asking for, the hook. You know what I'm saying?
Right. But you're number one, but your competition is country. So who cares? There's no real competition. So
well, in all honesty, what's obviously changing is, talk used to be an AM staple.
Right.
And AM is dying. AM as a concept, which I'm sad about because I grew up on AM radio, but it's pretty much dying now. A lot of AM stations are trying to reinvent themselves by, streaming, going through that route. But it's been there's a whole big, there's parts of the radio revolution that I don't even I don't understand. Right. I don't.
And you started, just to let the people know as we continue, Dan started as a sports writer.
Correct. Back in the day.
Down in Dallas, Texas, or whatever. You start Nebraska, Louisville. They're all the same.
Atlanta.
Yeah.
Dallas. And then Minneapolis, St. Paul late in 1986 is when I came to town.
So you've been doing the radio there for, I think, over 30 years, if I quickly do my math correctly. Do you ever get bored doing it? You work 6 days a week. Do you ever get bored?
Why is it you and so many other people in my life try to make me feel guilty that at age 68, I'm still on 6 days a week? That includes, by the way, my late great friend, Ron Rosenbaum, who was also my agent,
right?
Negotiated my deals. He too would say, what are you doing? You shouldn't be working on Sunday anymore. And for a while I felt guilty, but I don't anymore. I'm not going to apologize, Craig Kilborn, for doing what I'm comfortable doing.
Well, let's break this down. I'm going to tell you why you do it, and I'm going to compliment you. It's not work. It's a joy to be a broadcaster. They used to say Letterman, and you're not Letterman as far as he's supposed to be somewhat of a miserable, tortured guy. The only happy time is the hour that he was taping his show, is what they used to say. And then I'm going to say Pistol Pete Maravich, who he spent his time off the court just waiting to get back on the court to entertain. So it's a fun gig. It's a fun
You're not
life.
Wrong.
It's a fun
You're not
gig.
wrong. You can still have your quality of life at home.
Mm-hmm.
You can still have family, the whole bit. I've just never bought this. There's a lot of pressure that's put on people about, well, you're going to look back and you're going to regret. And it's like, well, no, maybe, but I said, it's my life and I'm fine doing it. And I still think I would be more miserable at home.
Right.
If I wasn't continuing to work. It's part of I like doing it. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to apologize despite my cynical nature.
Right.
I enjoy doing it.
I have two more anecdotes that kind of back up what you're saying. One is, I'm now going to reference another late night guy, Jay Leno. And there was this story where Jay Leno would do his show, The Tonight Show, and then take a private jet and do stand-up in Vegas later that night. He would do, that was a workaholic. But he said in an interview once, he goes, I go on vacation, I go up top of the hills of the mountain, I go, yeah, this is great, this is fine. But it's not as exciting as being Jay Leno on stage. So you probably don't get a kick out of vacationing as much as the other people do. You know what I'm saying?
No, well, there's some. I mean, I do like to vacation, but there's no doubt about the fact that I wouldn't keep doing it if I wasn't. Now, that doesn't mean there aren't days where I go, oh God, do I really want to take on the Swifties? Do I really want to take on the potheads?
Who are the Swifties?
The Swifties are Taylor Swift fans.
Oh,
Taylor Swift was just here, 2 blockbuster nights.
Right.
55,000 people a night, sold out forever.
Which night did you go? And did you get called on stage?
I did not go either night. I also expressed some bewilderment with the degree of solidarity between her and her fans. And boy, oh boy, hell hath no fury like those individuals who definitely were displeased, including Justin Gard, the producer of the program. Speaking of music, this is what I don't understand with Minnesota, because I'm out of touch with the music scene. We know that there was great music growing. We had Bob Dylan, Prince, you had the Replacements, you had this Husker Du, you had this music, different music. But I see sometimes that somebody, I don't know if his name is Luke Bryan or somebody, I don't follow country. But I'm sensing, I think, like Guardsy, and I think
maybe Finchie, the coach, went to a country.
Mm-hmm.
If some big country star comes to US Bank Stadium, is it an obligation for everybody to go see him? And I mean, do people listen to country in Minnesota? I guess they do. Country music?
Well, they I think there is an element that does. I'm not in that group, but Taylor Swift has reached a point where she's transcending. She's pop at this point, right? Let's be honest about it. And
which
she
throws me off.
transcends.
This is why I'm saying, why did Gardsey, who's country, Taylor Swift is pop, which is not country at all.
No,
I'm just saying, I didn't know. I didn't know all these people who went to the Luke Bryan concert. Is that his name, Luke Bryan? Is that
I honestly don't know.
Okay.
It sounds familiar, but I have no. I know less about country than you do.
Okay.
I can name like
Conway
Twitty. That's it. That's the extent of it. And maybe Buck Owens. I can go Buck Owens on the bid if you'd like. That's it. And I just like saying Conway Twitty. That's the main reason.
Twitty.
Yeah.
The Twitters, the Swifties.
That's it. They're
okay. So we're going to get into the pothead thing in a second. There was one more anecdote I wanted to tell you about Dan Barreiro. When I was at ESPN in the mid-90s, the Bulls were dominant. And I think it was a reporter named Mark Schwartz, but it's not really relevant. But he had worked. He had to go do a story as a reporter in the field to Chicago for 3 days to cover the Bulls in the playoffs. And he said to me, I hung out one night bar hopping with Ahmad Rashad in Chicago because he's friends with Jordan.
Sure, big time.
I said, how did that go? He said, let me put it this way, Craig. Ahmad likes being Ahmad. So, which I absolutely love, but you like being.
I just saw Ahmad actually at the Bud Grant funeral, the public. Well, actually, this was the private event. He still
looks.
He looks like he's 35 years old.
Right.
It's unbelievable. He's one of those guys who just doesn't age.
Right. But I'm tying together that you like being Dan Barreiro, dominating in the Twin Cities.
Love it.
Having 7 to 8 bathrooms, building a 10th in 2 years at the house.
Perhaps, if necessary. Well, because you don't ever want to use the same bathroom twice, do you, in the same day? You want to move around a little bit.
As you're broadcasting, and this might not apply to you, but it happened to me once. Have you ever fallen asleep during a show while someone's answering? Have you ever dozed off?
No. What I have done, and Gardsey will testify to this, is I have occasionally zoned out enough during an interview or when he's doing the top 5 at 5, which is our attempt to sort of get the 5 talkable sports items.
Yes.
At 5 o'clock, where I don't know he's about to try to re-engage me and almost ask me to bounce off of what he just said, and he has to repeat himself. I do plead guilty to that. But in terms of actually dozing, no. Not yet.
It happened to Mike Francesa once a few years back. There was video
I remember it became viral, did it not?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But when I was working one summer in Bozeman, Montana, when I was at Montana State, I worked at the local radio station midnight to 6 a.m. shift. And we had this thing, I don't know if you've ever heard of this company, Drake Chenault, and they had these music that would play. It was Every Breath You Take by the Police, all the time, every third song. So it was an automated playlist. And I decided I wanted to play a 6-minute Barry White song, and I put it on, and I fell asleep, and I woke up, and there was about 30 seconds of dead
silence.
Air. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Yes. That's trouble. Did anybody ever find out, though?
Yes.
Because if it's in the middle of the night.
Yes.
They did.
My friend, the general manager who let me do it, I'll say his name because he follows me on Instagram. He's my friend, Paul Van Ellis, said, don't do that. We pay money to Drake Chenault for this playlist. I want you to take next week off, Craig.
Ooh. So there was a little bit of a
little brushback.
A little punishment, a little bit of accountability.
I got a long list. I don't think we're going to get to everything. So let me. I got my foo-foo drink. I got my vanilla latte with almond milk. Too much sugar. So I grew up with a very bright father and an older brother, Chris, who was lone valedictorian of his graduating class of 500 in Hastings, Minnesota. I'm used to being around intelligent people.
Yeah.
I like your agile mind. You appreciate my agile mind. I want to first run this statement by you, or this phrase, and tell me if it's too melodramatic, because my friend said it about my dad upon meeting my dad. And
Ooh.
he said, knowledge is his mistress. Is that too melodramatic for you?
That's pretty melodramatic.
That's what I thought.
think.
My dad laughed.
That's
at it.
a
He goes,
little grandiose.
Yes.
Did he laugh? Did your dad laugh at it?
He made fun of it. He goes, that's ridiculous.
Dismissed it.
Yeah, he dismissed it. But my dad was lightning quick on the crossword puzzles and everything like that.
I was never a big crossword puzzle guy. I'm not a big Sudoku guy. Are you a Sudoku or Sudoku, whatever the hell it's called?
No.
That stuff never, I'm a reader.
Yes.
Craig Kilborn. I just like to read books. That's what I don't like doing.
I told you.
My daughter loves the word game stuff. I just doesn't do much
I used to do a few of the word games, but and I used to interview Merv Griffin, and I would tell him that Wheel of Fortune was glorified hangman, nothing to be proud of,
yeah,
kind of
that's
thing.
true, actually. You're right.
But no, I enjoyed, I think I've told you this, that Alistair Cook said once that the best writers in America—
you?
No, he didn't say.
Was he ever on your show?
I don't know. No. I saw him in, I want to say the 70s on television. And he said, I heard the best writers in America write for Sports Illustrated, because in the 70s, Sports Illustrated was the king. It
was
Frank DeFord and Curry Kirkpatrick and all these writers.
Well, do you remember the magazine for a while, very successful, called Inside Sports?
Yes.
Which stole some of those writers. And at one point, I think, for a lot of us, we felt like the best writing had moved to Inside Sports.
Yeah.
Then they lost the ability to pay for the writers, but it was extremely good sports writing.
Right.
Gary Smith was among those. I think, didn't DeFord? No, I guess DeFord was SI, stated SI.
But what happened was that it inspired me reading these guys turning a phrase and being clever. That's what inspired me. And my dad was funny. So comedy was a part of my life. And I love writing now because these guys inspired me when you mentioned the reading. And sometimes there are novels I will read that it's because of the writing. And sometimes the story is not pulling me in as much. But anyways, I like how people express themselves. But I wanted to go in a slightly different direction because you told me the other day, I didn't know you made fun of potheads. I guess we can do that now, but I wanted to ask you, because you go beyond sports, you do get in trouble talking some politics on your show because you have a wide audience across the political spectrum. Let me start with that. I'll couch the pot, because I know you want to talk about weed. That's what your thing is, weed.
I think you're more consumed by it than I am, the subject.
Well, I didn't know.
Okay.
I've known you for a long time, and we were on the phone the other day, and I use the term pothead, and I say I'm a square.
Well, is pothead, let me stop you right there. Is pothead is it a pejorative term?
I hope so, because I love calling them little neurotic potheads.
Because I was accused of that don't use that term because it's pejorative, and then I looked it up. It's technically it's defined as regular use of marijuana. That's not pejorative, is it? That's just factual. So I would argue that the potheads are too defensive and too sensitive about being called potheads. They view it as you're trying to dismiss us. That's the last thing I would ever try to do, of course. I'm just trying to talk about that group.
I definitely think it's a criticism and a mocking, even though the dictionary may disagree, especially when you end
Don't
with—
blow my cover, please. Do not blow my cover.
When you end with the word head, like jerk head or DICK head, I mean, pothead. But I didn't know until the other day, because nothing surprises me with people who, if you said, I don't drink.
Did you just spell out DICK head?
Yeah.
You did, didn't you?
Yeah.
So you even though on podcasts, you could say whatever you want.
I've had guests say the F word, which I don't like, but I keep it in. Yeah.
I sadly use the F word a lot in my life, but I have, in the podcasts I've done, I've never done it because there's still something stopping me. I don't know what it is. I'm not ripping other people for using it, but I just have had some difficulty. I just got a kick out of the fact that you spelled out. I'm not saying it either.
There's a part of me that's really prudish, which I'm kind of proud of. But I have said as you know, I'm a registered independent. That's the one thing I say. I don't really talk politics, but a lot of my friends, all my friends, were liberal, and there are some people. I have friends, if they didn't smoke pot growing up, they're like me. They're a square. Like, well, I don't relate to pot. That's a drug. That was illegal. So I'm making fun of myself. But it sounds like, from talking to you the other day on the phone, you make fun of potheads, even admitting though that pot is probably not as bad as alcohol, right?
Correct. I agree with that.
So why do you make fun of them? And I like that you do, because now I like you even more, because I like to make fun of pothead. Let me just say, I like a martini glass. I like the aesthetics of that. I don't like a bong, I used to do this to my friends.
How about a spliff? Not a big spliff fan, are you?
I used to say spliff at ESPN. They would say that word, spleef and spliff and weed.
Part of the reason it's topical in Minnesota because as of Aug 1, so right around the corner now, it will be legal in Minnesota. That was one of the big. The Dems are in charge of everything legislatively: House, Senate, governor's chair, and man, they went to town. They took full advantage of it. I don't even think we completely understand all the legislation that they passed. And one of the big markers was a pot that is now legal. So that's part of the reason it's become a big portion of the conversation the last several months on the air.
So this is one thing. This is where I'm very naive when it comes to weed. When people drink, they say you don't ever drink at work, so you have to wait until 5 p.m.
Yeah.
You have to drink after work. You cannot drink on the job. But my understanding with our friends, the potheads, which is now I just love, it's a comical word for me. They'll take a hit during the day. During work, they'll go out and take a quick hit just to kind of mellow out.
That's it.
And then the question I have is, I heard in Colorado, they don't monitor pot smoking while driving or under the influence of weed, where there are more accidents and fender benders now, but they don't treat it like drinking and driving. Is that correct?
Well, there's, that is one of the open questions. I mean, I'm not anti-weed. It's not big for me. My issue with the potheads is I got sick of hearing this onslaught of how this is some sort of panacea, that a door is being opened that has never been opened before, and we don't even realize how good that's going to be for all of us. And I just every once in a while say, well, that sounds cool, and I know that's the trend, and I know ever putting up any kind of like not stop signs, but like caution signs means I want to bring back reefer madness, and I want to pretend it's the worst thing ever for you. But there's a lot of scientific work being done that suggests there's some issues here, that it isn't the panacea for everybody, and that in schools, actually, it's a mess at many schools about how openly it's being smoked and the impact that's having on the educational process. So I've just asked, hey, look, let's have our eyes open, and let's not pretend that anybody who puts up a caution flag is, as I said, anti and wants to, and is 90 years old and wants to go back to 1957 when it comes to especially pot prosecution. Because that I get. The legal side of it, people being in jail for pot, not helpful. I don't think it's necessary, but there's a lot of other issues, are there not?
So you said a couple things that I'm going to respond to. There's a acquaintance of mine who is a therapist, and I always like to joke with people. I'm happy that people go see therapists. Krager's does something called self-counsel, so I've never been to a therapist, but I have friends that are therapists, and we chat. And this woman told me that she had kind of strong opinions about pot. She said, listen, there are some people, because of their body chemistry, should not be smoking pot. And she even went to say, everyone says, oh, it's not as bad as alcohol. Well, that's not necessarily true. So I hear what you're saying. I'm not talking about getting in trouble with the law. I'm talking about behavior and how it affects people. And it is, because on my show, The Life Gorgeous, I talk about it almost every episode, drinking in moderation. And it turns out the people listening like me they never get tired of me saying I have one martini a week. They can't believe that. watch me transition now. My friend Dan Barreiro has told me in the past, I thought you said, yeah, I don't drink much. Maybe I'll have wine once in a while. Then the other day on the phone, you said you don't drink. So let's just get off the pot, get on the alcohol. You don't drink, and tell me why you don't. And I have great admiration for people who don't drink.
Well, and I'm not trying to be, I'm not a Puritan about this. I don't want to meddle. I used to occasionally, in college, I drank beer just because that's what everybody drank. And,
Right.
And the Wilkie Quad, Indiana University, that's what you did, right? I mean, you had the keg on the floor.
Did you say Indiana University?
Indiana University, that's
so
correct.
you'd go watch Kent Benson and Scott May, you'd be hammered. Now that was actually what you,
I did cover
you weren't
them.
there then. Were you there?
No, I was there. I covered
really?
the last undefeated college basketball national champion.
75?
I covered
75?
76
Right.
for the Indiana Daily Student, or as Bob Knight, the head coach, called it, the Daily Dissident, which I could give you a million Bob Knight stories of my time covering the team. Yeah, I was there for that club. So yeah, booze was, I did it then. Wine for a while. I was and I get ripped for this again I don't know if this is still true.
Don't say rosé in front of me. Do not say you drank rosé.
Once upon a time, and maybe this, you're not supposed to be shamed over anything anymore, right?
Right.
Is it still legal and okay to shame people for drinking wine coolers? Because I like wine coolers. I'd like sangria, for example.
Okay, don't.
Eventually,
I will edit this out as your friend. As your friend, I will take this out.
I'm comfortable with it. Bring it on. Hammer me. Call me a wimp. Whatever you need to do. Whatever.
Here was the eccentric one that I got years ago when I started. I was a waiter at this place called Papa Louie's in Santa Monica, and now it's the Library Ale House. And it was an Italian restaurant. Papa Louie's. I waited on Magic Johnson, Bert Convey, Norman Fell. Do you know who I am? Do you know who I am? Yes, I've seen you on Three's Company. Yes, sir. Great.
That's a chapter for your book right there, man. I didn't realize you did.
So here's what one guy did. This was not a celebrity. This was just a guy, an older gentleman. And he said, please don't make fun of me. I know it's gauche. Could you put some ice cubes in my white wine? So that's where I thought you were going.
Yeah.
When you putting ice cubes, I like it really cold. But anyways, that's okay that you had wine coolers. It is embarrassing, but I want to move on because we have too much stuff to do. Here we go. Do you talk politics on the show, and do you offend people?
Yes and yes. Although there are some days that I don't, because you have to be in the right frame of mind, knowing that because we're largely, I think, a 50-50 country at this point.
You still think we're 50-50, right? Yeah.
Well, it may be give or take, but I think it's still pretty close, yeah.
But wait a sec. I just want the listeners to know, because I know you. You have told me that you are just left of center. You've also said you're libertarian. Do you say that on the air at your broadcast?
I don't bother anymore because people, no matter what, because what I've learned is people don't trust the labels you put on yourself. Okay. And so I've reached a point where there's a decent segment of my audience that believes I'm not slightly left of center. They think I'm left of George McGovern. Now, that's a dated reference, but that's an old presidential candidate who back in the day was pretty lefty.
Right.
And on some stuff, I guess I can be. On other stuff, I'm not. And that confuses people. Then I get, which I pride myself on because I want people to be confused. So I've tried to stop doing the declarations just to say, here's what I do say. I said this again the other day. I don't want to be in anybody's party. I don't want you to think I'm on your side because I want to be on my side. And I don't care if I am, saying the thing that you think needs to be heard, or I'm saying the thing that pisses you off. I don't care. So if you want to say I'm a lefty, say it. I can give examples of why it's not quite that simple, but you and I both know the reality politically right now is what people tend to do is they will remember the positions I take when they suit the image they've already, burnished of me. If they think I'm a lefty, the only things they're going to remember, and they're bothered by it,
Right.
they're going to only remember, there he goes again. There goes Dan. He's another one of those lefty crackpots. They will not remember that 2 weeks before, or even the day before, there were 2 or 3 things that actually was not red meat for lefties at all.
Right.
So that's part of the reason why at some point you leave the declarations alone and you just say, all right, I'll just, take my best shot at this. And I feel like if I'm pissing everybody off, that's probably a good sign.
So you think your audience is split? You have some people, you have Republicans and Democrats that listen to you, and you find that you're upsetting the right more than the left in your broadcast? Is that what you're saying?
I would say it depends on the day.
Okay.
I mean, because we've spent a lot of time on, and the term has become trite. The cancel culture term has been overused for sure.
Right.
But it's real. There was an element of it. We can decide for ourselves how damaging it is and the ramifications of it. But we, on college campus stuff, what's not allowed or what is constantly challenged, I've been on that for years. And so that's certainly not what lefty. I mean, I'm with Bill Maher on one fundamental thing, and that is because people say to Maher, "Oh, what happened to you, man? I used to respect you, and you've changed." And what Maher says, and I'm with him at least 80% of the way, is no.
They changed.
I didn't change.
Yep.
You changed.
Exactly.
And there's a big difference between being classically liberal and progressive. For better or for worse, that's the reality.
It's interesting because if in fact, and I agree with you, sadly, what if the Republican Party or the conservatives had stayed kind of where they were? Because Mitt Romney is the opposite of Donald Trump. Great example. What if they would seem more sane right now? But of course, the Trump thing throws everybody off.
Now, do you think I poisoned the well when I refer to Donald Trump as Trumpty Dumpty? Do you think that might be part of why then the righties say, "Oh, there he goes again"?
Well,
mocking our guy, as name calling.
You have to realize that I do say I'm apolitical, and I was raised not to talk politics. And I have friends. When I need to talk, I have a neighbor who's he's a moderate Democrat, but more so than probably you, because he said if he gets sick of the Democratic Party, he's one of those rare Democrats that would vote Republican. He would vote for Mitt Romney if he ran. If he ran and he somehow got the nomination, but that's a hypothetical because he's not. Mitt Romney, I don't relate to Mormonism. I'm not a religious person. He's very level-headed. Went to Harvard Law School.
Well, he governed one of the most liberal states in the country. Did he not?
He tried universal health care there. He did universal health care in Massachusetts. So, yeah, but here's the thing. I don't know if you were exposed to what I was exposed to in Hollywood and in television. There's a term called the liberal media. Mm-hmm. And my neighbor friend that I reference, he worked for one of the big newspapers, either in Chicago, New York, or LA. I'm trying to protect him. I mean, you could figure it out.
Interesting. Okay.
For 23 years. And he says, of course it's the liberal media. Everybody I worked with, everybody he worked with.
I know what you're talking about, but I'm not going to name them.
Right. So what happened was when I worked in television, everybody I worked with obviously was a registered Democrat. Okay. There was one guy, I guess there was one guy who I found out was a Republican, but he never said anything. So
he was afraid to say it, probably.
Yeah. But I also obviously know there are a bunch of angry, far right, redneck, etc. Republicans out there, and then there's some moderates. But I'm just not around it. So I wanted to run a few things by you. You do believe the term then, liberal media, you do think that's accurate then, correct?
I think it's largely accurate, but I also think it can you go too far down that rabbit hole, it leaves a lot of things out. But yeah, in general, I think that's where it definitely goes. I mean, I'll give you my abiding theory on this now. And it's my biggest pet peeve beyond that liberal media concept. My biggest complaint is, and I've gotten texts to this point, I get emails about this. The people, what I tend to respect in journalism is people who, what I call follow the story. Wherever it goes, I'm going to follow the damn thing. I don't know where it's going to go. And it may end up annoying righties, it may end up annoying lefties, but I'm going to go there if that's the story. I'm going to try to investigate the story. What we now have in media is a movement, sometimes spoken out loud, that, well, we kind of believe we should have gone down the road on that story and followed it, but I'm going to hedge my bets. You know why? Because I don't want to give sustenance to the enemy, because the enemy is going to take that story and they're going to exaggerate upon it and make it seem something. They're going to use it as a powerful tool. And I'm saying, yes, the answer to your concern is you're absolutely right, but that shouldn't stop you from following the damn story, because that gives me some feeling that you're going to try to be credible about it. You can't hedge, you can't pull your punches, I don't think, because of that concern that what are they going to, the other side's going to do with that, and what are the crazies going to do with that? And unfortunately, I think that governs way too much media in 2023. I think that's a bigger issue than quote unquote liberal media.
Right. I know what you're referring to. I guess we can't get specific because it's too dangerous, but I know what you're saying. There are certain stories that will just look the other way because it doesn't fit our narrative and it doesn't help. It doesn't help our issues. The other thing is, I may not be as organized as I want to, but part of it is this. I look forward to writing a book, and I've told you I'm going to write a book, and I'm taking notes now. And most of my book, 80% of my book will be, the Life Gorgeous.
Are you going to write it, or are you going to have it ghostwritten?
I will write it because I love writing. I love writing.
I was going to offer my services.
You can write. Can I have like 3 people write a forward? I'll let you write a forward. I'll let my brother write a forward.
I'd be honored if I could write a forward.
I'm going to have you, my brother, and Larry Legend write a forward. Larry Burton.
Why?
I just wanted to say that.
You and Larry Joe are very close, are you not? Now,
I met him.
Can you have more than one forward? That's a very good question.
I think I break a lot of rules.
You could do whatever you want. It's your book.
I break a lot of rules. But I am going to have a chapter on leadership. And I like to run things by my brother, my friend out here. I like to say, what do you think of this one? So I'm going to run a few of these gems by you. But one of them is, I sometimes can say for a fact, I might be the most level-headed man in America, because I say I love Barack Obama, but I have the proper admiration for Mitt Romney.
Right.
So, but it's not the politics that bothers me. I'm accepting. I know why someone wants socialism, and I know why people like capitalism with restrictions, etc. It's the people that bother me. It's the temperament that bothers me. Mm-hmm. So let me hit you with this. So you have to realize that I'm talking about, I've worked with a lot of liberals and they're great. And I love moderate liberals. And some days I feel like I am that person.
Sure.
Very compassionate. But I'm also very pragmatic. And I keep saying I'm an independent, but I can't talk to
registered independent.
I'm a registered independent.
That's what you said. You're not just an independent, a registered independent.
Well, that's the only way.
I don't even know what that means, but
I'll tell you what it is. I had to register as an independent to get the ballot sent to my house. I had to mark something.
I see.
Yeah,
okay.
I couldn't do it. Otherwise, So I can't really talk to some of my friends in the industry about any of this stuff because it's a religion for them. So I don't know if you have been around the zealots that I've been around in the entertainment industry. And I want to keep saying, I know there are a bunch of freaks on the right. I just am not around them, but obviously they exist and it's a problem. So here's my thing with moderate liberals versus the others. Some of these people feel they're more enlightened. Do you ever get that or not?
Oh, God, yes.
You do get that.
I get that via the Bradshaw and Bryan Cafe and text line every day.
Okay.
That's a sponsor, by the way, Bradshaw and Bryan. That's
okay.
Whatever that's worth. Yeah, no question about that. And the tone is very lectury.
Yeah.
And the tone is, I know what I know makes me feel better about how enlightened. In other words, if you want to be enlightened on a subject, here's what you're supposed to say. And I've learned that because that's what other enlightened people around me have said. And I want to be in that circle.
Okay.
And I don't want to disappoint the people in that circle. And that speaks to what we were talking about earlier. That means you can never say, wait a minute, guys, seriously? Do you realize this is happening regarding this story? No, you don't, because people are not reporting it, or the sources you go to seem to be afraid to report it. So you're 100% right. Yeah.
I used to have this thing, which I've tweaked it now, but I used to say, there was this saying where they said, when you do charity work, when you give to that charity, you get more out of it than the charity. And I would say, I already feel good about myself. I just want to help the charity.
That's it.
Now,
you don't need that other piece.
So I believe these people, what makes them feel special is being on one side or the other. And I say, I already feel special when I wake up in the morning, whether I think I'm talented or whatever the reasons are. So it's not a religion for me, but I did work with people. And I as I was thinking about today, preparing my notes, it was really, there were like two people at two different places, at the Daily Show and the Late Night Show, that were malcontents, and they thought they were special, and they might think they're activists, but they actually have major issues. They're one of them, or maybe both of them, excessively bitter. Mm-hmm. And this is what makes them feel good. So let me hit you. The thing is, I did this with some of my friends, and I ended up editing this out because I was getting too lectury. But let me just see what else I have here.
Well, you're talking about a form. I mean, it's another cliche, but there's some truth to it. Virtue signaling. That's a lot of what we're talking about here, where you take a position because you like the way it's going to make you look. You might believe it or you might not, but that's what you want to do to feel better about yourself. And for other people to say, oh, he gets it or she gets it.
Is this unrealistic? This is one I want to run by you potentially in my book, which may not be out for 5 years, 10 years. We don't know people. I think we have the working title.
Have you written the first chapter?
No, I've written.
You have an outline?
I've written. No, I have the chapters. I know how I'm going to do it, and I know that the late night stuff will be entertaining for people. But I
could be controversial if you name names. It could get you. Better be careful. Hollywood's. They tell me it's still a very tough town.
Right, and that's why I'll take my time to do it. But some of the fun stuff you've heard, I've told you stories, the Christmas story about my dad and my mom, that will be in the book. Yeah,
that's a good one.
There are different anecdotes that will be in the book, that most of it will just be wonderful, uplifting, positive. And I even will make all the stuff I'll make positive. I think I'm able to be clever enough to do that. Here's one I want to run by you. Have you ever heard a couple of these, the famous definition of a conservative? A liberal who just got mugged.
I have heard that one.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, do you do this, or I have two separate categories. I have conservatives in a different category than Republicans. Do you do that, or am I the only one that does that?
No. Well, at any given point, they could be the same thing, but then at other points, like now, they're not.
Right.
I mean, especially now, because now is still about either clearing the deck on Trump or not, and the people who don't want to clear the deck on him or are afraid to,
right?
They're not. There's nothing conservative about Donald Trump. So,
yeah, and I don't know if I said this earlier, because I know you said something about Trump, and I went up. I think he's god awful, the worst person ever. Not ever, but I think he's so unprofessional and pathetic. And of course, I never trusted.
He's frightening.
Because he was a lifetime New York Democrat, so I never trusted him. I'm just kidding. But here's this. Let me laser in on something. So I have conservatives different than Republicans, and I think sadly conservatives are stuck with the Republican Party, which is too religious from my standpoint.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
But I know conservatives, a few. I don't know that many conservatives. I have to drive out of LA to meet and talk to a conservative. They are pro-choice, and they want to fight climate change. Now, this may sound as a shock to some of my liberal friends who think all conservatives are pro-life. No. These are people who are not religious that I know, not religious,
right.
Pro-choice, want to fight climate change. So then I say this to my friends just to have fun. If you take a moderate liberal and a moderate conservative, they overlap on the issues. The sides just want to be in control, basically.
Correct.
They want to be in control. Here's the difference between the moderate liberal and the moderate conservative as they agree on everything, hypothetically. The moderate conservative does it with less money and less emotion.
That's not bad.
Not bad?
That's not bad. That's workable.
Yeah?
Yeah, well, you have to decide for the book whether you want to go down this road at all. And of course, by the time you write it, things might be changed dramatically anyway. But
Right.
you have to decide how political you want to get in the book.
It's just
there's danger. There's danger in doing it because you are going to annoy.
It's going to be 5%,
a certain
8% of the book. It's going to be one little chapter.
Okay,
that's just fair. Say here's a couple things.
Yeah,
and I actually this episode you and I are doing. I'll show it to Princess Chair, and she'll say take out the less money, less emotion. So I don't know how much of this. It might just be you going off on the potheads the whole time.
That's okay. That's all right. That's fine.
Whatever
works.
A couple more prepping for my book. The name of the book, of course, is Above the Fray: The Life and Leadership of Lord Kilby. Might be The Adventures of Lord Kilby. Who knows?
Above the Fray, so that's the hammerhead, and then there's this in smaller type. There's the rest.
It could be The Adventures of Lord Kilby.
Yeah,
The Life and Leadership of Lord Kilby. All of these are possible. Can I call malcontents bitter freak shows? I'm asking you, or is that too harsh?
Well, but I need more information. When you say malcontents, who are you referring to?
I'm
referring
talking
to people
about the
that you
political
worked with?
Zealots.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean the people that are like, if you're not, they can't even talk to someone on the other side of the aisle. It's like,
So that would be dedicated to Rob Reiner, for example. That would be your Rob Reiner moment, is what you're saying.
So you believe that he's too far left, that he can't talk to, is that right? Because I don't see enough of him. I've seen him on Bill Maher, but the example that I always give is the guy that I think that everyone knows that is kind of out there is Michael Moore. I don't know if you feel Michael Moore and Rob Reiner aligned, or
well, I don't even know because I kind of lost touch with him with Moore. Is he still in the fray? Is he still very public? I don't know. He represents at one time definitely what you are referring to,
right?
For sure. Yeah.
What if I said this? Does this make sense? For me personally, if you're full of rage and bitterness, you have no credibility for me weighing in on the issues.
I have no problem with that.
Oh,
but I have no problem with that at all. I think that's truthful, to be honest.
Okay.
I mean, that might hurt people's feelings. I don't want to make this all about Trump.
Right.
Okay, I don't. But I do believe if you trace the arc of folks, whoever you want to name or not name, who seem to have gone over the bend, it's traced back to the ascension of Donald Trump. I really think something fundamental changed with him.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean someone else couldn't have come along to push the same levers, but I'm serious. I think his ascension just it almost tripped something in a lot of people, where they literally lost their minds. And I'm like you. I think he's a buffoon. I think he's dangerous. I think I'm amazed at the unwillingness of the Republican Party to not pretty much ensure that it's not going to be viable as long as it continues to play footsie with this clown. But I do think it unleashed something that it's just up the ante in a way that we've not seen before.
That's a great point, and I don't doubt. I don't know how to predict or analyze his awful influence, but I will say this: and whenever I want to make a point to my friends, I have to quote a Democrat because for credibility purposes. So my friend,
your audience,
referencing my moderate Democrat friend, said something a little different than what you said. He said the far left, what they did was give life to Fox News and then Trump. So he was saying that's how that started. That's just his opinion. You're saying, Well, it's also both can be true because once
Both
Trump
can be
came
true.
along,
Yes.
then these other guys that kind of were moderate freaked out. And I love, so do you like the word freak? Because I like it. And some of my friends are like, I do a joke that I said, I don't know if it was Freud who came up with neurotic bitter freak show. But
I don't have a problem with freak show is I think that's actually safe enough. I'm surprised your buddies.
One of my
react to it.
buddies thought it was hostile.
Well, yeah, there's a little bit of that, but I mean, there's plenty of. I mean, you don't have to apologize for.
I'm just having fun, folks.
Yeah, you're just
As
having
Dean Martin
fun.
said, I'm just having fun.
Well,
folks.
I mean, I think both things are true. I think you can. There's no doubt that part of what made it possible for an entire movement to exist to an extent, including Fox News, is a belief that I'm not going to get what I'm looking for here from these folks. So. Yeah, I think both things kind of work together, to be honest with you. Both can be true. I don't think it has to be one or the other.
Okay, last two. Can I say if you're a neurotic, bitter freak show? I'm sorry, I said it so much. I wrote this down. Can I say if you're a neurotic, bitter freak show and you try to say something noble, I giggle. So I see through it is what I'm saying
Yes.
when these guys, because
Yes.
I don't respect them already. I already know that they're messed up. And they say something so profound and I see through it. Am I being too cynical? What am I doing?
It's very patronizing.
I love
Very
that.
patronizing.
Thank
and
you.
You're somebody who I think likes to hammer other people when they patronize. That's the danger. But it's effective. Yeah. You got to have some edge to it.
As Walt Whitman said, do I contradict myself? Yes, I'm complex.
There's many layers.
Right.
To Lord Kilby.
Here's the one I've used lately that I like, and I don't know if I'm in the minority. And someone said, you know what? You might be in the majority because I don't know if you know that there are a lot of registered or independents. Everyone says that we were 50-50. Well, the growing section of the population are independents who are fed up with both sides or are not partisan. As I say, I just care about the issues, but I don't.
Right.
So here's the one. Here's the statement. My favorite two politicians of my lifetime are Barack Obama and Winston Churchill.
Ooh. Well, you're going to get ripped on Churchill.
Exactly.
You know that, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, just so you know.
But I want you to know where I'm at.
Yeah. Okay.
I grew up.
Right.
I'm an Anglophile. I'm English on both sides of my family. I grew up loving Churchill. In fact, my writer friends, the comedy writer friends, I've had them all on here. One of the things I love to do is to say, have you seen Gary Oldman in The Darkest Hour? And only one of them has. Five of them haven't.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
One of them said, I don't want to see it. It sounds like medicine to me.
Oh, come on. It's history.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
I know.
Give us the tools and we will finish the job. That's what Churchill said to FDR, didn't he? To America, basically. Give us the tools. And did they not finish the job? Now they needed our help, but we gave them the tools, and then we obviously
Charles
jumped in.
Hammer called him the greatest leader of the 20th century, Winston Churchill. I don't have to defend him or explain to him, but it's my litmus test on people to say, what do you think? Because I do have moderate liberal friends who know the greatness of Churchill.
That's sad, but true, because whatever you think of him, the great tragedy for me of Churchill was he basically was the guy who carried through his leadership Great Britain and the Empire through, to defeating Nazi Germany, and almost immediately got dumped by the voters.
I know.
Almost immediately they said, "Thank you, now go away." Think about that.
That's crazy.
It's insane to me.
Thank you for that segment. I'm going to see how much I keep in. Can you understand why Craigers might want to take some of it out? Or
I'm fine with whatever.
You're pretty easy going that way. You're not offended by much.
No, not about this kind of stuff, because I get it. I get you. So if there's stuff that you, where you go, I don't want to go. I'm fine. I mean, I'm comfortable with everything I said, but.
Right. I'm talking mainly for me because the people want me to talk about what color ascot am I buying next month. That's what they want.
Well, why do you think that is?
Well, I'm exaggerating, but I
not
think
by much, because
people. I'll tell you why. I'll tell you what it is.
Yes.
I'll tell you what it is. and I could, you ready?
I am ready, and I think I know it.
There are people who we like Craigers, who are funny, who we don't want to hear them. We don't want to hear Conan O'Brien, who I love, who's the funniest guy around, Jerry Seinfeld, Bill Murray. I named 3 people that I think are hilarious. Nobody wants to hear them on camera talk politics.
That's it. You've nailed it.
Yeah.
And so I get that. They want a different level of, you want to call it comfort.
Yeah.
You call it whatever you want, or just something. I mean, we've talked about this before. I don't know if we've talked about it. I know we've talked about it on radio with me. I don't know when you've been on with me. I don't know if we talked about it last time we did the podcast. The genius of Carson was exactly what you say. I mean, think of when he was on through, the most tumultuous 60s, and he tended to just do the show that he did. Now, some people could accuse him of being gutless. I think it was part of his genius was, I'm going to give, there's other places where they can get that stuff, Dick Cavett included, and I thought Dick Cavett was brilliant at doing it, but Carson's genius to me was, I'm going to keep giving them something a little bit different and conversational, and I think that's why no one has ever touched him or ever will.
Yeah, I put him I just put him as the best. He's cool, smooth, sophisticated. Jokingly, my dad said after Carson, it became a dork festival in late night, but that was my dad being a smartass. Interestingly, when I was at the Daily Show, was one of the producers like, you better not be a conservative. I said, I'm apolitical in my 30s. Most of the guys, Kimmel, and I've talked to these guys, Letterman, Leno, these guys, they weren't into politics in their 30s. They're into their comedy.
Right.
And then as you get a little older, then you start, focusing more on the issues. I keep saying I don't talk about we haven't talked about issues today. We've just talked about the psychology of this stuff. But one of the producers said, you better not be. And I said, I'm not political. I just laughed. I said, I'm apolitical. And I avoided it. I avoided politics in my 30s because of the arguments. But the producer said, Johnny Carson was Republican, but Dave's not. I know you love Dave. Dave's not. So, Johnny, did you know Johnny was a Republican? Does that sound right to you?
I didn't know. Well,
I don't know if that's true, but that's what I was told.
I thought Carson was, I don't know where I would have read this, that somewhere along the way that he was kind of all over the map too,
Okay.
But that may be true. I don't know. I
don't know either.
I guess it wouldn't surprise me, but
Right.
I don't think he necessarily had to be. I think the assumption's often made, well, if you don't talk about it, that's because you must lean the other way. And I don't know in necessarily in his position where that was the case. I just think he thought, I'm not gonna mess with
the guy that I believe in Hollywood is very popular and very nice guy who is, they say is a conservative, but he never ever says anything, is Adam Sandler.
Ah, yes, I have heard that.
Okay.
Yeah, I have heard. I think I've read it too. Yeah,
right. I'm transitioning.
I don't know how many others there are, though. I mean, I'm sure there are. There are a couple, but they just.
There's John Voight.
True.
There's Patty Heaton.
Right.
Gary Sinise, and that's it.
That's about the whole list. Yeah.
I'm changing subjects because I have a few more things to do. I know you got things to do, but let's.
What time we got? Oh, we're good.
Okay, good.
All right.
I'm going to do, this is something. Before we get to the Life Gorgeous quiz, I have a few more questions for you.
Okay.
Oh, I only have a couple because we already talked about the drinking. Congratulations. I'm going to name 3 legendary actors, and I want you to rank them as far as your favorite, not who you think is the best, who you enjoy the most, 1 to 3.
That's an important distinction.
Yes.
Okay, favorite, not best necessarily.
Right. And I think in my head, I think I know who your favorite is. I think I know who your favorite is. But okay, here we go.
Okay.
Legendary guys. Cary Grant.
Jimmy
Stewart. Humphrey Bogart. As you know, I watch a lot of old movies on Turner Classic, and I know that you are also a fan of old movies.
Well, this is a tough one. Oh my goodness.
Do you have a favorite, or maybe it's too hard?
I love all 3. Although I will say this, I love Bogart, but only in Casablanca. I mean, I know he had other significant roles, but they didn't hit me the same way.
Interesting.
So maybe that answers the question. So maybe I can't put him 1. I think because there were different roles in which I loved Stewart and Carey, they should both be ahead of Bogey because Bogey's just about one role for me.
Okay.
Although I love the role.
Right.
I'm going to go I'm going to go Bogey 3.
Okay.
I'm going to go Cary Grant 2.
Okay.
And I'm going to go Jimmy Stewart 1.
Okay.
Was that what you expected, or did you think otherwise?
Partially. For some reason, because I always think as we're all different types, and you might like this guy more than I like this guy because you're a scrapper and you're Dan and I'm Craig. So I obviously like Cary Grant the most. I think you could look at me and figure out why. No, that was a joke.
Erudite, sophisticated,
Smooth,
looks good with the martini.
Through the hotel room in North by Northwest, trying on the jacket. So, but I did think for some reason I thought you'd have Bogey 1 because I thought I've always liked Bogart, but in the last few years I've watched so much of his. I like film noir, so I've watched so many High Sierra, Dark Passage, which is up in San Francisco with Lauren Bacall. So I now appreciate him more, but I knew Jimmy Stewart was a stud, the everyman, and I knew that he was brilliant, but I've moved Bogart up. So right now I'm doing Cary Grant. I might even put Bogart. I'm so on to Bogart because he was self-taught as an actor. He's so unique, and I've seen so many of his movies. And
he's moving up your list.
Yeah. The problem with Cary Grant was he didn't do as many great movies as Jimmy Stewart did. Jimmy Stewart did a bunch of great movies.
A bunch is not all of them with Hitchcock. Several of them with Hitchcock, but not not all of them.
Another subject way over here. It's about people. I don't know if people know this, but so I grew up in Minnesota, and I didn't know until I was older.
Who doesn't know that?
No, this is the part they didn't know, that it was the coldest state. So it is officially, I believe, even though it's situated between the Dakotas and Wisconsin, it's colder than any other state in the United States.
Are you sure?
Is that, I'm asking you, is that true?
I don't know. It felt this last winter like it was. We had 100 inches of snow and bitter cold to boot. It was awful.
Psychologically, how would you be there if you weren't the number one radio guy in the state? I mean, how do you psychologically handle the cold? Do you just get in your car and you're in your garage and you have underground parking at K-Fan? How does it work?
Yes. Okay. Underground parking at K-Fan.
Okay.
It's hard. It's getting harder and harder to finesse it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's no question about that. And chances are I wouldn't be here, to be honest. I got to be careful how I say this. I love it here. I've had great 30 plus years here, longer than that, actually, newspaper. So let's see, 37 years I've been here. So obviously much longer than any other place I lived, including my birthplace, one of your favorite towns, Gary, Indiana.
Gary.
You're a big Music Man guy, aren't you? You always were. It's hard, man. It's absolutely, I think the older you get, the harder it is to finesse it. Cause you say, well, how many of these, how many do I have left? And at some point, cause some people say you don't understand what you would miss about the change of seasons. And I do like the change of seasons, but I will say my other comeback to that is, let me find out for 5 years.
Right.
And maybe after 5 years of being out of it, I would miss it enough, but I betcha for the first 4 or 5 years, I would be fine. Or the old bit of you come back for Christmas, you see the family, and that's enough of the atmosphere of Christmas and the snow and the holly and all that stuff. So.
You betcha.
That's
When I was at ESPN, I was talking.
Do they all do that stuff with you? Make fun of the Minnesota stuff?
My dad called. He'd give me some lines for home run calls. One of them was stretch pitch. Oh, you betcha.
Did you ever use it?
I used that. But the one that he gave me that I used that everyone liked was Krakatoa. That one's Krakatoa east of Java.
I like that one. That's a good reference too, by the way.
All right, it is time for the Life Gorgeous quiz. Simple questions,
got my pen out.
Profound insights.
Is this number one, or do you count them down 3, 2, 1?
No, these are just there are no numbers. But I
Okay.
do like the last one the most. It's very exciting.
All right.
Who is your favorite male singer of all time? If someone asked you like I just did, would you be able to name one? And I will not accept Bobby Darin.
Bobby Darin was a good singer, by the way.
I'm the only person who doesn't like the song "Mac the Knife," and I didn't like that. I just
You know
didn't
what? I actually think he had better songs
Right.
than Mac the Knife. I think that was a bit of a cliche.
Like,
Yes, I can name. You love that, don't you? Yeah.
I don't like
You
it.
love the cadence. You can't get enough of it. Yeah. Yes, the answer is Todd Rundgren.
Oh my Lord! I would
A
never have
huge-
guessed that in a million years because
Huge
Manilow
Todd
has
Rundgren
such a
fan.
better voice. Manilow has such a better
Don't.
voice.
That's such an insult to Rundgren. I'm not even as a
So that's
as a
interesting.
Todd
So
Oboe.
why
Yeah.
do you? Is he? Does he? I like his songs. Is it considered? Is he considered to have a good voice?
No, not. I like this song. The big agitation for Todd Rundgren was he had this like split personality. He had the Todd Rundgren who had a group called Utopia where they would do more experimental stuff, and it was a lot louder. And then there was the Todd Rundgren who wrote some of the most beautiful ballads in pop music I think ever written. And he used to bug him that
Right.
obviously, in fact, I had him on once and I said, you got to stop. I mean, in my opinion, and I was able to say this to him because we seem to have a good vibe, that there's an art to being, even if it's a pop song, even if it's a syrupy song, I would argue if you do it as well as I think he did it,
Mhm.
you never apologize for doing it. And yet you could tell in him, part of him was like, oh God, I got to keep doing those songs. And I just loved his double album from like the early 70s, Something Anything, I thought was brilliant.
So you probably know. I interviewed him on the Daily Show, by the way. You probably know his body of work better than I do. But
Right.
I am a guy who likes ballads. My brother says I'm a sucker for ballads. So with Hall & Oates, obviously Sarah Smiles the best, but
Tremendous.
Wait for Me. I don't know if you've ever heard that song.
I remember that song.
Yeah, it's a good song. So I have a clear favorite Todd Rundgren song. Can We Still Be Friends?
It's terrific, and it's been
Is that his best
replayed.
song? Is that
No,
his best song? Okay.
I think his biggest hit was his best song. Hello, It's Me. I
Right.
still think is his best song.
Right.
However, Can We Still Be Friends is a terrific song. There's a million, well, I say a million, but there's a lot of good ballads. So I
Covered by
love
Robert-
shocking you by the way.
Right. Robert Palmer covered. Can We
Robert
Still Be
Palmer, the
Friends?
late great Robert Palmer, I might add. He's
Inter-
gone and not forgotten.
Interviewed
very
him.
good musician.
I interviewed him. He was
Did
great.
you?
Yeah.
I love his. I've still listened to several of his.
During the commercial
albums.
break, I said, this is in my late 30s when I still drank single malt scotch. And I towards the end of the show, so he's the musician. So he sings and I talk to him. And during the break, I said, yeah, do you drink? I always like to know if they drink, Yeah, he goes, Scotch. I go, oh, I Lagavulin 16. He goes, oh, I can't do single malt. I do blended Scotch, So that's like Dewar's and stuff like that.
Oh, is that
Smoother,
hoity or
it's a little easier
toity?
on you. It's a little easier.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
See, that's a language this is all
Stick to wine coolers, Barreiro.
with or without ice.
Okay, here's a fun one. We have two more.
Okay.
Growing up, besides curse words, my parents said we couldn't say 3 words. Can you guess one of them? So these are not offensive words, but the parents said, do not say those. Do not say that. Do not say that. Can you guess any of them?
Well, not words, expressions. I would say in your family, you weren't allowed to say "I can't."
No.
No. Okay.
You weren't allowed to call people this.
Oh, okay.
Dumb. Don't say the word dumb.
Dumb. Okay.
Don't say the word stupid.
Okay.
And don't use the word hate.
Hate.
So strongly dislike is what we used to say. I strongly dislike this episode of Batman.
Have you adhered to that?
Yeah, I don't use
Your
dumb,
whole life?
stupid, and I don't use the word.
I use
HAT.
stupid too much on the air. I probably do. My problem with it is it's just sloppy and it's not very precise and it doesn't.
Lazy.
It's lazy. It doesn't really say.
It's more fun to say dim-witted.
Yeah, dim-witted is okay.
He's adult.
My favorite word, negative word, would be asinine.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
And then there's a I should say noun version. Asininity is a word. Did you know that?
Have you ever used that?
Asininity. I've used it all the time on the air now. Yeah.
Right.
You should know as much as you say you listen.
Does head spin when you do that?
Asininity. He looks it up. He goes, what the hell? How do you spell that? And then I have to spell it for him.
The sad thing is he looks it up every time you say it. No.
That's probably true.
All right, here's the final one, and I've been doing.
I'm sorry, I failed on the second one.
That's okay.
That's a tough.
That was tough.
Well, I don't know your. I mean, I know a little bit about your family, but you know.
This is the final one. I've been doing it for the last few weeks, and I really enjoy it because
Did you do this one with A-Rod?
I didn't, and I kind of wanted to, but it's a little longer.
Oh, okay.
I did cream cheesecake versus creme brulee with him, and he chose cheesecake, which is the correct answer.
That is my answer as well.
Creme brulee is too sweet. This is because I don't eat a lot of carbs. This is a real treat for me. But what are your 3 favorite sandwiches of all time?
Oh, my 3 favorite sandwiches.
Take your time.
Of all time. Well, well, I know what the first one is. I know what the top one is.
Oh, that's exciting.
It's very simple. Favorite sandwich is just ham and cheese.
Ham and cheese sandwich.
Ham and American cheese, but I mean really good. I'm talking about good deli ham.
Okay.
And I'm talking about not baked and not smoked, boiled. I'm a big boiled guy. My mouth is watering thinking about it because there ain't a lot of great. There used to be a great deli in this town called Cecil's.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it exists anymore. There was a place downtown. And it was one of the few places you could go to in Minnesota where they wouldn't just give you part of the problem with sandwiches in a lot of places, including Minnesota, is if you ask for ham and cheese, they'll give you maybe 1.5 slices of ham.
Oh, you need
Cecil's. You got to pile that stuff up like New York, right? You go to New York and you get a real sandwich. I don't have to tell you.
If you get a real one, if you get one in New York, it's a 2-day thing, or
that's true.
Lunch and then dinner. You can only eat half of it at a time.
Correct.
They're huge.
Yeah.
But what kind of bread are you putting that on?
Baguette, French baguette.
Okay.
And it's got to be fresh, obviously. Fresh French baguette. I grew up on French bread. In fact, my maternal grandmother, used to work at a place called Lincoln Dell in Gary. I could walk to it from where she lived, and that's all they made. They made a small empire just concocting, sandwiches of deli meat sandwiches. Big deli meat guy.
I like rye bread. Okay. And
I like rye bread as an alternative.
It's going to come into play. So give me 2 more.
All right. The second, these are very simple. I don't even know. Well, yeah, I can get to 3 pretty easily. Number 2 would probably be chicken salad sandwich.
Okay, that's one of mine. I have 2 warm ones and I have one cold one.
Be good.
I have chicken salad number 2. I love chicken salad. But
it's got to be good chicken salad.
I like it with walnuts, grapes, all different kinds.
I'm fine with that.
I go mayo mustard. I go cheese. I go red onions. And I
won't do onions.
I know a lot of people are afraid of onions.
Onions are too tough on my.
Are magical.
You love those.
You got to kind of go home after that. You really can't go to work after the red onions.
You get a little gassy after that, do you?
No, I'm saying your breath. It's very strong.
The breath. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
I have a pure system.
But the chicken salad. But the key to me, a bad chicken salad, you can barely locate the chicken. You got to get
there's a balance.
Substantial
there's a ratio.
Chicken. Right. Or else you're just getting a bunch of goop and a bunch of mayo and a bunch of other things. You got to have some chunks of chicken in there.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And the third one for me would be basically an old-fashioned grilled cheese. And I actually prefer, there used to be a place in this town called the Convention Grill. Wow. It's no longer open in Edina, Minnesota. And it was just kind of an old-fashioned kind of a soda, basically a place you get ice cream, you get nice sweets, but they also had, it's an old-fashioned grill kind of a place and diner place.
Right.
And their grilled cheese and bacon, which, by the way, speaking of rye, I would get it on pumpernickel. So I would go dark bread there to die for. I miss it to this day.
So couple things. Let me unpack what you just did. I love saying the word unpack. Let me unpack.
You love that, don't
You have 2 out of my 3 because I have grilled cheese and chicken salad. Here's my list. Now, my first one blows away everyone. It blows away your sandwiches, and only one guy has said it since I've done this.
You're not going to say a meatball sandwich, are you?
No, sir.
Okay.
And it's on pumpernickel. You can put it on rye, but I put it on pumpernickel.
Okay.
And I like sauerkraut.
See, I hate sauerkraut. A Reuben.
Bam.
Can't touch it.
Oh, Russian.
You got to like sauerkraut. You'll agree. If you don't like sauerkraut, too rich.
You didn't grow up in Minnesota with bratwurst and beer with sauerkraut and the mustard on the bratwurst?
There was plenty of it in Chicago, too. What about how about a Monte Cristo sandwich? What do you think of that?
Okay. Great question. I've never had one. It's deep fried. I've never had one.
It's not healthy, but
I will have it at some point.
Tasty.
When I'm 89 years old, I'm going to have it my last week on
You're
Earth.
Wait. Right. You go to the Monte Cristo.
Okay, so I had...
Basically a French toast sandwich is what it is, in effect.
Right. So I had the Reuben, the chicken salad, and then I had a third one.
Yeah.
And then Princess Cherry said, what about a grilled cheese? I go, oh, yeah. Because there's a restaurant over here that used to be Campanile. Now it's Republic. They had grilled cheese night. They do it with different cheeses. So I had to take my third one and dump it. And my third one had been, and I don't know if you like these or not, tuna melt.
No, not a tuna guy. Not a tuna guy. I can't do it. Don't like the smell. Don't like the consistency. It's just like a paste. To me, it's like paste across the bread. No. We're way off on that one. Sorry.
Okay, we disagree. We did have 2 others. And I do like ham and cheese a lot. I love it. Yeah. I like it warm. I usually like it toasted. Cheese? I switch it up.
Yellow or white?
I go cheddar now. I go yellow. I go cheddar. But I like so many cheeses. I like
sharp
Swiss.
Cheddar or mild?
I like both, but I'm not giving you a commitment because I do both. I like sharp. Okay. I like mild.
That's all right. I'm fine with that.
Swiss cheese.
I don't.
So I don't
like the smell of it.
It's bitter. I like it. So what is the cheese you put on yours? What is it? Don't say
American or cheddar. Oh, a lot of cheddar.
Well, why don't you just
I will do some white cheeses, but not Swiss because
why don't you just put Velveeta on there and get a wine cooler and go home?
Have you ever had Boar's Head American cheese?
Absolutely.
Okay, yeah. Boar's Head American cheese ain't like getting it out of the wrapper. It's much better.
Right.
I'm just saying. I knew you'd look down on it though. Very patronizing.
Always a joy. I'm
going to be in trouble now. By the way, it's so late.
I'm sorry.
It's unbelievable. I have a show to do, a radio show to do. I'm supposed to prepare for it. Now I'm not going to be ready for today's show because I'm
going to listen. I look forward to seeing you again and visiting your house and using
this summer?
Bathroom number 9.
When are you coming? Are you ever going to come
to the State Fair?
Yes. We need to have you at the Great Minnesota Get Together. It would be awesome. We got a great spot.
I will either come this summer or next summer. Let me think about it. Okay.
I'm not going to pay your way, but
I've got a linen sport coat that is not ready yet. If it's ready by August, whatever.
You know what else? Because here's what you do. Instead of flying, which you don't love to do anyway, you drive across the country back to the Midwest. You have an eye-opening experience.
How many days? Is that 4?
Well, comfortably, I think probably 4. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. And we should have you on soon, but next week I'm off.
Another vacation.
Monday, Tuesday. Well, no, it's the 4th of July.
It's Johnny Carson all over again.
Yeah, I don't have enough weeks vacation is the problem.
That's our show, ladies and gentlemen. I'll see you next time. And remember, young people, I'm proud of you.